There's a reason manifestation appears effortless for some people and exhausting for others. And it has nothing to do with discipline, intelligence, or spiritual maturity. The difference is not in what they do, it's in what they don't interfere with. Most people assume that effort creates results. So when they see someone attract opportunities, relationships, or breakthroughs without visible struggle, they conclude that person is lucky, gifted, or unusually confident. But quantum physics tells a very different story. What looks like ease from the outside is actually the result of internal coherence, a system that is not fighting itself. Effort, in manifestation, is usually a signal. And the signal is not strength, it's misalignment. When someone tries hard to create change, they are often broadcasting internal conflict. One part of the system wants the outcome. Another part doubts it. Another part feels unsafe receiving it. The nervous system senses this contradiction and stays in protection mode. And a system in protection cannot collapse new realities. It can only preserve familiar ones. This is why some people manifest with almost no visible effort, not because they are passive, but because their internal state is already aligned with the outcome. There is no argument happening inside them, no urgency to fix the present, no identity waiting to be validated by the future. According to quantum consciousness theory, particularly the work of physicist Amit Goswami, consciousness is the fundamental agent that collapses reality from possibility into experience. But collapse only happens when consciousness is clear enough to choose. When awareness is divided, oscillating between desire and fear, the system remains in superposition. Nothing resolves. People who manifest effortlessly are not trying to collapse reality. They are simply not preventing it. Their nervous system is stable. Their sense of self is not anchored to lack. Their attention is not locked into anticipation. As a result, consciousness can make clean selections without resistance. The field responds not because they asked correctly, but because there is nothing blocking the response. This also explains why forcing manifestation usually backfires. The more you try to convince reality to change, the more you reinforce the internal message that it hasn't changed yet. The field mirrors that state precisely. Effort amplifies absence. Ease, on the other hand, amplifies availability. This doesn't mean effortless manifestors don't care. It means their caring is not mixed with urgency. They can want something without needing it to regulate their internal state. And that distinction is everything. Wanting from fullness signals readiness. Wanting from lack signals delay. Most people don't realize this because society rewards effort. We're taught that trying harder is always virtuous. But the quantum field does not reward effort. It responds to coherence. And coherence feels deceptively simple. This is why manifestation often appears unfair. Two people can desire the same outcome. One struggles endlessly. The other receives it with minimal friction. The difference is not belief or positivity. It's internal stability. And once you understand that, a deeper question naturally emerges. If effortless manifestation is the result of coherence, not effort, then what exactly is happening inside the nervous system of people who receive without struggle? Because that answer changes everything about how manifestation actually works. Quantum physics does not describe reality as something that reacts to force. It describes reality as something that resolves through choice. And that distinction alone explains why effort is often the very thing blocking manifestation. In classical thinking, cause comes first and effect comes later. You act, then reality responds. But in quantum theory, especially in the interpretation brought forward by Amit Goswami, this sequence is incomplete. Reality does not emerge from action alone. It emerges when consciousness selects one possibility among many that already exist. Before anything manifests, it exists as a range of potentials in the quantum field. These potentials are real, but unresolved. They are not waiting for more effort. They are waiting for coherence. A stable enough state of awareness to allow a clear selection. This is where most people misunderstand manifestation. They assume wanting more intensely strengthens the signal. In truth, intensity without coherence creates noise. The quantum field does not amplify noise. It remains undecided in its presence. Goswami explains that collapse of the wave function the moment a possibility becomes an experience, happens through conscious choice, not through mechanical force. But consciousness can only choose when it is not fragmented. When awareness is split between desire and doubt, anticipation and fear, hope and urgency, no clear selection occurs. The system stays suspended. Effort often increases this fragmentation. Trying harder usually means the mind is overengaged, scanning for results, measuring progress, checking reality for confirmation. Each of those actions reinforces the idea that the desired outcome is not here yet. And in quantum terms, that assumption becomes part of the state being expressed. Effort doesn't collapse possibility. It prolongs superposition. Effortless manifestors, on the other hand, are not generating more desire. They are reducing internal contradiction. Their awareness is not oscillating, it is settled. That stability allows consciousness to do what it naturally does: choose. This is why manifestation often occurs when people stop trying to make it happen. When attention relaxes, the internal field becomes quieter. When the nervous system exits vigilance, awareness becomes available for selection. And when awareness is available, the quantum field reorganizes. It's not that reality suddenly listens. It's that nothing is interfering anymore. This also explains why visualization and affirmations fail for many people. Repeating images or statements while the body remains in stress does not create coherence. The mind says one thing, the nervous system broadcasts another. Consciousness cannot choose from a divided signal. Quantum manifestation is not a mental technique, it is a state-based process. When the system is coherent, consciousness naturally collapses outcomes that match that coherence. No strain is required. No convincing is necessary. The field responds because alignment already exists. This is why some people experience sudden, almost accidental breakthroughs. From the outside, it looks random. From the inside, it often follows a period of emotional neutrality, surrender, or internal quiet. That quiet is not emptiness, it is readiness. And this leads to a deeper layer most people never consider. If manifestation depends on coherence and coherence depends on the nervous system, then the real work is not about thinking differently. It's about regulating the internal environment that consciousness operates within. Because the field doesn't respond to what you want. It responds to the condition you are in when you want it. And that raises the next essential question. What exactly is happening in the nervous system of people who allow consciousness to collapse reality with ease? And why does stress silently block that process? What most people never realize is that consciousness does not operate in isolation. It expresses itself through the nervous system. And the state of that system determines whether consciousness can collapse reality, or whether it stays trapped observing the same timeline over and over again. From a neuroscientific perspective, a nervous system locked in survival cannot access the states where quantum selection occurs. Chronic stress, hypervigilance, emotional urgency, and constant anticipation keep the brain operating in high beta frequencies. These states are excellent for problem solving and threat detection, but they are terrible for coherence. In high beta, the brain fragments attention. Awareness jumps between past and future, between what is wanted and what is missing. This fragmentation prevents the unified field of consciousness from stabilizing long enough to make a clear selection. The system is busy monitoring, not choosing. Effortless manifestors do not live in this state. Their nervous systems spend more time in alpha and theta rhythms, states associated with relaxed alertness, creativity, and internal regulation. In these frequencies, the mind is present, but not forceful. Attention is focused, but not strained. And most importantly, the body is not signaling danger or lack. This matters because the quantum field does not respond to thoughts alone. It responds to the total informational field being broadcast, mind, body, and emotion combined. When the body signals urgency, even the clearest intention becomes distorted. Joe Dispenza often explains that stress hormones signal the brain to look for problems, not possibilities. But from a quantum perspective, this does something even more critical. It locks consciousness into past-based prediction. The brain keeps recreating known patterns because it believes safety lies in familiarity. No new reality can collapse from a system designed to preserve the old one. Effortless manifestation begins when the nervous system exits the need to control outcomes. Control is a survival response. It arises when the system does not trust the environment or itself. But quantum creation requires the opposite condition: internal safety. When the body feels safe, attention can settle. When attention settles, awareness stabilizes. When awareness stabilizes, consciousness can finally select rather than react. This is why surrender is so often misunderstood. It is not giving up on desire. It is removing the physiological interference that prevents consciousness from acting freely. Surrender is a biological shift before it is a philosophical one. People who manifest easily often describe a period where they stopped caring in the usual sense. What they actually stopped doing was signaling lack. They stopped scanning for evidence. They stopped bracing for disappointment. Their nervous system returned to baseline. And in that baseline state, something subtle but powerful happens. The mind stops asking reality to change and starts assuming it already has. That assumption is not delusion. It is coherence. In quantum terms, coherence is when all parts of the system communicate the same information. The thought, the emotion, and the bodily state are no longer contradicting each other. Consciousness receives a clear signal about which possibility to actualize. This is also why manifestation feels instantaneous for some people and impossible for others. The difference is not worthiness or belief. It is nervous system regulation. You cannot force coherence. You can only allow it by removing internal noise. And once coherence is present, the quantum field does not need instructions. It reorganizes automatically. Probabilities shift. Opportunities align. Outcomes collapse not because you pushed for them, but because nothing inside you was resisting their arrival. This raises a deeper realization that most people are not ready to hear. Manifestation is not about creating a future. It is about removing the internal conditions that keep you locked into the past. And once those conditions dissolve, reality doesn't need motivation to move. It moves because there is nothing left holding it still. One of the most misunderstood moments in manifestation is the phase right before things change. Most people expect excitement, certainty, emotional highs, or clear signs. But in real quantum shifts, the opposite often happens. What appears instead is neutrality, not boredom, not emptiness, neutrality. This is the state where the desire no longer pulls at you, where the future doesn't feel distant or urgent, and where the outcome stops occupying your emotional bandwidth. To the untrained mind, this feels wrong. It feels like motivation has faded, like something important has gone quiet. But in quantum terms, this quiet is not absence. It is resolution. When consciousness stops emotionally leaning into an outcome, it signals that the internal contradiction has dissolved. The system is no longer oscillating between wanting and waiting. The identity that needed the outcome has softened. And this is critical, because reality does not respond to wanting, it responds to identity. In physics, collapse occurs when a system reaches a stable configuration. In human experience, that stability shows up as emotional neutrality. The nervous system is no longer scanning for confirmation. The mind is no longer rehearsing the future. Attention returns to the present moment, not because of discipline, but because there is nothing left to manage. This is why people often say, "It happened when I wasn't even thinking about it." What they mean is that the internal pressure dissolved. The body stopped signaling lack. The mind stopped narrating delay. Consciousness became available. Excitement, on the other hand, often keeps people stuck. Excitement is still forward-leaning. It still contains anticipation. And anticipation subtly reinforces the idea that the desired reality is not here yet. Neutrality carries no such message. It says internally, nothing is missing. From a neurobiological standpoint, neutrality corresponds to parasympathetic dominance, the state where the nervous system feels safe enough to stop predicting. And prediction is what locks reality into repetition. When prediction relaxes, probability reorganizes. This is also why forcing positivity backfires. Smiling through tension does not create coherence. Affirming while monitoring does not collapse outcomes. Consciousness cannot choose while being watched by a nervous system waiting for proof. The people who manifest effortlessly are not more optimistic. They are less internally divided. They allow desire to pass through them without clinging to it. They allow intention to be set without revisiting it emotionally. And they trust the quiet that follows, instead of interpreting it as loss of momentum. If you've noticed a strange calm where urgency used to live, that is not a setback. It is a sign that the internal work is complete. The signal has been sent. The system has stabilized. And once stabilization occurs, the external world catches up on its own timeline. This is the paradox. The moment you stop checking whether it's working is often the moment it starts working. Because reality does not need your attention to move. It only needs your interference to stop. And if you're listening to this and recognizing that quiet inside yourself, not as an idea but as a lived sensation, there's a simple way to anchor that coherence right now. If this resonates, write "I am coherent" in the comments. Not to convince yourself, but to let your nervous system register the state you're already in. There is a subtle mistake that blocks more manifestations than doubt, fear, or lack of belief combined. It happens when manifestation is treated as something you do instead of something you are. The moment manifestation becomes a tool, a technique, or a strategy, you automatically position yourself outside the reality you're trying to enter. Tools are used to fix absence. Identity operates from presence. Effortless manifestors are not applying manifestation. They are inhabiting a state where the outcome feels structurally normal. Not exciting, not miraculous. Normal. And that normality is what allows reality to reorganize without resistance. From a quantum perspective, this makes perfect sense. Consciousness does not collapse outcomes from the position of trying to get there. It collapses outcomes from the position of already being there. The observer does not chase the observed. The observer defines the frame within which observation happens. When someone constantly checks techniques, repeats methods, or looks for reassurance that manifestation is working, they are unconsciously reinforcing a distance between themselves and the result. The body remains in a microstate of waiting. The nervous system stays slightly forward-leaning, and that subtle lean is enough to delay collapse. This is why many people feel exhausted by manifestation practices. Not because they are difficult, but because they keep the system in effort mode. They keep identity anchored to the one who wants, not the one who is stabilized. Effortless manifestors stop doing manifestation at a certain point. They stop revisiting the desire emotionally. They stop narrating the process. They stop explaining it to themselves. And what replaces that effort is something quieter and far more powerful: embodiment. Embodiment is when your internal behavior no longer references the outcome as future. Your decisions, pacing, emotional reactions, and self-talk are no longer shaped around anticipation. They are shaped around congruence. You move as someone whose life already includes the thing you once asked for. This does not mean pretending. It means the nervous system has adjusted to a new baseline. The body is no longer bracing. The mind is no longer rehearsing. And consciousness is no longer divided between now and then. At that point, manifestation is not something you initiate, it's something that unfolds. Quantum physics describes this as the system resolving once interference stops. In lived experience, it feels like life moving without friction. Conversations align, timing shifts, opportunities appear without effort. And the more you try to analyze why it's happening, the more you risk reintroducing interference. This is the paradox most people struggle with. The less you try to use manifestation, the more manifestation seems to use you. Because when identity stabilizes, reality has nothing left to negotiate. The outcome doesn't arrive as a reward, it arrives as a consequence of alignment. And when you understand this, you stop asking, "How do I manifest faster?" You start asking, "What state am I returning to every day?" That question alone changes everything. At a certain point on this path, the question is no longer whether manifestation works. The question becomes whether you can remain in the state where it works naturally. Because coherence, once accessed, must be stabilized, or the system drifts back into effort without realizing it. This is where most people unknowingly reset their progress. They touch alignment briefly, feel the quiet, experience the neutrality, and then return to old identities the moment they start measuring, explaining, or waiting again. The field doesn't punish that. It simply mirrors it. Quantum manifestation is not about reaching a peak state. It's about making coherence your baseline. When your nervous system is regulated, your identity is no longer organized around lack, and your attention is no longer scanning for confirmation. Reality doesn't feel dramatic. It feels responsive. Subtle shifts begin to stack. External events align without announcement, and life starts moving in ways that don't require motivation or force. This is what people mean when they say manifestation became automatic for them. Not because they learned a secret technique, but because they stopped reintroducing internal contradiction. The real work, then, is not creation, it's maintenance. Not visualization, but stabilization. Not asking, but remaining. And this is where guidance can matter, not to give you something new, but to help you stay with what you've already accessed, to prevent the mind from pulling you back into effort, to keep the nervous system anchored in coherence long enough for reality to fully reorganize. That's why the work I created around quantum rebirth, together with its companion, quantum grimoire, exists. Not as a manifestation method, but as a stabilizing framework. It's designed to help you embody the state where effort is unnecessary, and where identity no longer collapses back into waiting. If you feel that something in you has already shifted, and you're more interested in remaining there than chasing another breakthrough, you'll find that work linked quietly in the pinned comment. No pressure, no urgency, only if it matches the state you're already in. Because when coherence becomes familiar, manifestation doesn't feel special anymore. It feels inevitable. And when reality starts responding without resistance, you realize the truth most people never reach. You were never meant to force the field. You were meant to become clear enough that it could finally move.